Ergonomics Dan, and this is the Retroid Pocket 2S. Confusingly titled, I know. There's the Retroid Pocket 2, the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus, Retroid Pocket 3, Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, then the Retroid Pocket Flip, then the Retroid Pocket 2S, which is where they basically reinvented the Retroid Pocket 2, brought it a bit more up to date. Now there's also the Retroid Pocket 4 and the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. Confusing, I know. I will explain what I like about its handheld, what I don't like about its handheld, and why I'm probably going to get rid of it. As you can see, I went for the transparent green colourway, which I love. I love transparent handhelds. I love that you can see the inner workings. I just think it is a great looking device. It's probably one of the key strengths of the device, is the looks. The problem is, beyond that, do I have much of a use case for it? Personally, I probably don't. Now, the Retroid Pocket 2S, as I said, is a reinvention of the Retroid Pocket 2 form factor, which was out a few years ago, and I loved it. Essentially, they've then given it Hall sensor analog sticks, which are sort of magnetic analog sticks, and they've increased the power of the chipset. So this is the T610, I believe, from Unisoc, and this is slightly less capable than that's in the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, but it still runs Dreamcast, PSP. There's a reason why you shouldn't really play PSP on this. Dreamcast, N64, bit of GameCube, and a bit of PS2. From what I've tested in the games I play on it, on PS2, it's been fine. Caveat, I wouldn't buy this if you're looking for a PS2 emulator. It's not up there. That sort of thing is what you want from the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro and the new Odin 2, which is an absolute powerhouse. This is, if you're looking for something, for example, 4x3, which would rule out more newer games anyway, anything like all the 8-bit, 16-bit handhelds, all the 32-bit systems, the N64, I say the PSP, it can play it well, but because PSP is 16:9, you have these big black bars on the screen, so you're playing it's a 3.5 inch screen as it is, and then add on the black bars as well, and you've got a very small screen to play with. And the Dreamcast, which is great. I love the Dreamcast. I never actually owned one. Oh, sorry, I did own one for a week, and I took it back. I had a friend who had one. He was a very well-off kid who had a Dreamcast, but had so many consoles that he would just borrow it for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, which was amazing. And there's some great RPGs on there back in the day. And as you can see from my collection on here, I've loaded it mostly with Dreamcast games, such as Skies of Arcadia, Sonic Adventure 2, Soul Calibur. Dreamcast was a great little system. Evolution, The World of Secret, Grandia 2, Sega GT, names random Dreamcast games. Dreamcast. Anyway, as I say, it was a great system, the Dreamcast. I bought one, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago. So we're talking like 2009. And yeah, I plugging it into my HDTV, and it was just a bit of a hassle. I still have the VMU somewhere. Somewhere in my drawer I have the VMU. I didn't return the VMU. But yeah, that's besides the point. I didn't really love having it, so I'm glad you can emulate it quite easily now on these fairly cheap handhelds. This was including shipping, etc. I think all in about £120. You pay for shipping for China, and I also bought a screen protector, which I made a complete ruin of, and I had to chuck in a bin. But I bought this and the case, which is a pretty nifty little thing here. Fits the console perfectly, as I'm sure you would guess, and it's a decent little size, not too big, not too small, good bit of padding, semi-rigid case, Brilliant. I think it's about $10 extra, so about £7 or £8. Worth getting. I know these aren't insanely expensive, but they're not cheap either, and I just like to get things protected. And we're back after realising I just shot 5 minutes of footage with my head cropped out. It's still a learning experience. Anyway, so Retroid Pocket 2S. Now, we do have a few features on here I'd like to explain. So, the Retroid Pocket 2S has inline triggers, shoulder buttons there, so you've got the L1, L2, R1, R2 like you would on a modern day console. Dual analog sticks, which I said they're hall sensor, analog sticks. D-pad, ABXY, you start, you select. You've got 3 function buttons here. Now, home is pretty obvious, brings you to home. You've got a back button and I guess a mappable button, which I haven't mapped. As I say, the games I have on here, I've got a large collection of ROMs which sort of developed from completely legal sources, which are of games I own. I own thousands and thousands of games, and I've ripped them all. We'll cut that bit. I've kept this to a minimum number of games on here because I basically get distracted really easily, and the amount of times you can get just scrolling through menus for hours. Option paralysis, I believe they call it. So essentially I wanted to have just the essentials, the games I've been meaning to try from the systems which this is capable of running. So I've got Tekken 6, Evolution, which was a Dreamcast RPG which I used to enjoy back in the day, Grandia 2, again Dreamcast RPG, Sega GT, Sega Rally 2, Skies Arcadia, Sonic Adventure 2, which are incredibly good platformers, Soul Calibur, Mario Kart DS. DS is actually quite enjoyable on here. You just you map a button to the split screen to swap the screens. So it's actually quite decent little handheld for DS. Pokemon Black version, which is obviously a DS game again. The only Pokemon pre-Violet Scarlet, which I haven't completed. Just found it really slow going, Not loving it. Final Fantasy 12 Revenant Wings, which is again a DS game. I love Final Fantasy 12. I think it's one of the most underrated Final Fantasies. I especially think that the Final Fantasy 13 trilogy really highlighted just how good Final Fantasy 12 was. So Revenant Wings is something I've always been meaning to try. Again, it's a DS game. Kingdom Hearts, the first one. I feel like I played this a lot back in the day, but I can't remember any of it. I know I played hours of Kingdom Hearts, but I can't really remember. Persona 3 FES, or FES. So I'll talk about that one a little more actually. It's a really good game. It's a PS2 game, it's really good. I've got Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, PS2, one of the most fun games I remember from my teenage years, so good. Vagrant Story for PS1, because I love Vagrant Story. I've never played more than an hour of it. I've got the, obviously I've got it on PS1, on disc. I played it on PS1, I played it on various emulation machines, and I've never got more than an hour into it, and I think it's quite a tough game, but now I'm an adult, I figured, give it a go. Still haven't played it. Final Fantasy Tactics, self-explanatory. Pro Evolution Soccer 2014, simply because that was the best Pro Evolution Soccer that I could get onto this machine, and it's okay, but it's a PSP game, so it's a bit, Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Now, I enjoyed Breath of the Wild, wasn't obsessed with it like the rest of the world was. I thought it was a decent game, so I thought I'd go back and try some other Zelda games. I tried Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, one of the N64 ones where you are in a village at the start, and then you're kicking some chickens around and catching them at some point. It was decent. I didn't get that far in, as you might have guessed. And then, as is the problem with emulation, when I changed device, I forgot to change my save file, and so I've got to start over again. I haven't been motivated to start over again, but I've got Wind Waker on here, and it seems like a pretty fun way to play. Cell shaded, GameCube, and it runs quite well on this. And I said some GameCube games will run well on the Retroid Pocket 2S. And then I've got Final Fantasy 12 as well, which runs fairly decently on it as well. PS2 game, but it runs quite well. Now, the issue I have with this machine is not how well games run, it's how well I find them to play. Now, I wasn't expecting PS2 from this because I know a reasonable amount about emulation. I've done a lot of research on it before I bought it because I'm a bit obsessive and sad and I hate wasting money. So I wanted to know exactly what this thing was capable of. And all the reviews from the top guys were, don't expect much from PS2. Now, I found a bit of a trap playing with the stats on, having frames per second on the corner. You tend to watch the frames per second rather than getting immersed into the actual game itself. And I found for this machine, I would only have games on here which I felt I was comfortable playing and the machine was comfortable playing. And so that way, whenever you play a game, you know you can be able to play it, so you don't need to have the stats on. You can get fully immersed. And that makes it feel a bit more like a proper console, a proper device, like a Nintendo or a Sony device would, a first-party console rather than a third-party machine. Now, I will say that on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, which is a PS2 game, there are some moments of slowdown, but because it's, you do have to do a lot of tricks and have reactions and stuff, but it's actually not unpleasant to play with slowdown. It's quite playable. Does help that I have anti-grav cheats on, and you can usually hear it a little bit slow down from the music. But I'd say it's quite an enjoyable game to play. Certainly possible to play it. I mean, bailing like a bad one, but it's an enjoyable game, and the Pocket 2S handles it well. Now, I bought this about a fortnight prior to going on holiday, and I took on holiday with me, and in the downtime I managed to play a considerable amount of Persona 3 FES or Fez, which is a little hat. So I imagine it's not Fez, but I can't remember what FES stands for, so I'm just going to call it Fez. Anyway, I played about 18 hours of Persona 3, and as a PS2 game, it ran fine. It's good, obviously it doesn't rely on reactions because it's a turn-based RPG. And, ooh, that's a mad trick. It ran really well. I've showed it off in another one of my videos. And I actually will always be grateful to the Pocket 2S for that, because that helped me really kickstart my love for Persona. I've now copied my save file onto my Steam Deck, and I'm playing it upscaled and with like 8 hours of battery life, and very comfortable ergonomics. The problem I have with the Retroid Pocket 2S, and the reason why I don't replay it that often, firstly, the Steam Deck exists. When I'm at home, I've always got the Steam Deck around. I mean, it's right here. And I know that it's a significantly larger device, significantly larger, obviously. It's a bit of a chunker, but, just to prove a point, guess what I'm playing on here? Persona 3 FES, middle of the save. Steam Deck is ergonomic to me. It's really well weight balanced, and it runs every game emulator that I've thrown at it. Sometimes with Switch you get a little bit of compatibility issues with the emulators, but PS2, for example, I mean, I don't know if you can see there, we're running this PS2 game at 2x because it's kind of wasted because the screen is obviously only 800p. There's not much point pushing it past 2x. And it looks decent for a PS2 game. It's not going to suddenly look like a PS5 game just by pushing the resolution up. It looks sharp enough. But we're also on 80% battery, and it's saying we've still got around about 8.5 hours left. Obviously, different areas have different performance, but in this area, we're getting that sort of amount of battery. So I'd say it's around about 8 hours on average, which is a very decent amount to never have to worry about, when am I going to run out of charge, unless you're like on a flight or something. Which brings me back to this. This battery is decent. The limitations are that, as you can probably tell, I am a fairly large chap. I've got quite big hands. I'm 6'4", about 194 centimeters, but hands that to suit. And this is a lovely compact device, but it is a bit small and flat, and it's comfortable enough to play with these sort of ridged shoulders. You sort of lean it on there and perhaps lean on your fingers when you're playing. It's comfortable enough to play for, say, half an hour, 45 minutes, and while sat up. If you're at any sort of angle, if you're lying down, if you're slouching, I'm a very slouchy sitter. You may notice I'm moving position all the time in this video. If you're slouching, if you're sitting down, if you're not in the perfect position, you'll find your hands start to cramp up. Not quite as bad as the Switch Lite, but it does make me wish I bought the controller grip, which you can buy for this device. However, the whole point of me not buying a controller grip was because I wanted to be able to just easily turn it off, pop it in the case, zip up the case, boom, I'm done. Small device, slightly less than the size of my hand. Shove it in, chuck it in your rucksack, put it in your big pocket, put it in your car pocket, put it anywhere, sort of thing, and quickly just open it up. Don't have to attach a controller grip or anything like that. Turn it back on, boom. We're right back in the middle of playing Tony Hawk's. Right back into playing Tony Hawk's again. And it's a decent enough experience. I say the issue with me keeping this is just down to the fact that the limitations of Android as an emulation system. Like there's so many things which are configured for your buttons, which is great. The one thing I keep noticing I have to do is I have to drag this down and change my brightness depending on where I am. And obviously I suppose there are auto brightness settings, but I'm always quite keen to adjust my own brightness. Thank you very much. And I can't see any way. Oh, okay. Well, I can't see a way to bring that up without touching the screen anyway. I can close it, apparently, by pressing the A button. But actually bring that up. Maybe I can map it to one of those hotkeys. Maybe, I don't know. And then the problem is, now I've done that, I'm now running in an application window, as you can see by the white bar at the bottom, which kind of breaks the immersion and makes you remember that you're just playing this in an emulator and not like a first party device. These are sort of nitpicky things, but now I'm also aware that I've got a lot of fingerprints on here. So then I go back to this, give him a little screen protector, a screen wiper out, give it a little wipe. It's just, I don't know. So when I'm out and about and travelling, like for example on that holiday, this was great. 20 hours into Persona, and actually, I didn't wish I had a Steam Deck at any point. I was glad I just had this, happy with just this. It's convenient, I could just chuck it away in a bag, had long battery life. But when you're around the house, which is the majority of the time you're playing, if you've got something like Steam Deck, you're most likely playing the Steam Deck. I know that haters will say, oh, it's such a big clunky thing. It's like, to me it's not. And fair enough, they may have played it, but I'm surprised people don't like the ergonomics of this if they've actually held it and played it. And they complain about the weight of it. have they held and played it? I mean, maybe they have. It never feels heavy. It never feels clunky to me. It feels just right. I mean, I personally don't really use trackpads on the Steam Deck, so I'd probably be able to shave a bit of space off the sides if I made the Steam Deck. But yeah, splitting hairs here. It's a great device. But yeah, that's basically the Retroid Pocket 2S. What it can run, what the use case is for it. Decent little travel companion. Play a little bit of PS2. Play a little bit of GameCube. But would I use it every day? Have I used it much? No. I mean, after the initial buzz of buying it, I've probably used it maybe once every 2-3 weeks. Around the home, I don't see a huge use case for it, and that's why I might use this to fund my my Odin 2 purchase. Obviously, nowhere near going to cover the cost of the Odin 2, but it could go towards it. And something else that one of my previous videos, a commenter mentioned that he wasn't a fan of this, and I didn't notice it at first, but ever since then, I cannot stop seeing it. That little bit of, I don't know, thermal plating, a little bit of copper, something like that, just next to my fingers there, which you can see quite clearly and not particularly attractive through the clear case. Otherwise, the clear case is pretty good, and I like how the light just goes through it. But yeah, that little thing is like, if I hold this up in the light, that transparency, I don't know if you can see that, the transparency is pretty sweet. But yeah, inline triggers, yeah, decent. The screen isn't huge and it does have bezels. Sounds okay. At the end of the day, if you are happy with the screen size, have smaller hands than me, or don't necessarily get cramped when playing, and you just want something for about £120–130 all in, this is the Retroid Pocket 2S. This is the 4 gig version, I should say, 4 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of internal storage, with expandable storage. Probably should say these things at the start. But yeah, it might appeal to you. I'm not sure how long I'm going to have it though. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, it always helps. And if you enjoy what I'm making, I also have a Patreon. Easy to find, patreon.com/EerieFoxDan. And all the links will be in the description of this, obviously. Yeah, thank you for watching this far. And if you haven't watched this far, just skip to the end. Then also, thank you for skipping to the end. Thank you for watching any of this video, because I ramble a lot. Cheers, thanks, bye.